Hi everybody, Dave Thomas here again, and today I am building the Dragonite model rocket from Estes. And this is advertised as an easy to assemble, snap together rocket. That is, you don't need any type of glue or cement with it. And you might be thinking this would be a great one for very young kids. I'll tell you right now, it's not. Okay. If you're going to be working with a younger rocketeer on this, you may want to kind of pre-build parts of this yourself, or at least look through this video, because some of the parts on this can actually be kind of frustrating for younger hands. That being said, it's a pretty sturdy model considering there's no glue in it whatsoever. If we go here to the instructions, we'll do our usual check of the parts. Okay, so we've got a pre-colored body tube, and you may notice here, let's see if it'll stay in focus, that we have slots cut into both ends, and this is where plastic parts will be fitted in later on. Alright, we have a fin can that comes in two pieces, and this also includes one of the two launch lugs integrated to it. Okay, on the other end we have another launch lug, and this is a sleeve that also acts as the anchor for the shock cord. Here is the shock cord. It's actually a very generous one. I'm glad that they put a long one in this. 12-inch parachute, and then we've got a lot of little plastic parts here. So 3 fins, and notice that they come in 2 types here. So 2 of the fins have these multi-tabs on them, and one of the fins has a single tab with a hole through it. That'll become important later. We also have these little plastic guys here. These are decorative additions. They're supposed to look like pipes or wire conduits. And then this is the motor retainer, and then we have 2 sets of rings here. And to kind of identify these strangely, but as you work through it, you'll figure it out. But these are combination centering rings, and in the case of one of them, it also acts as the engine block. And these are locking rings. These will go on the outside of the fin can to hold everything together in place of having cement. And then finally we have a tube for the motor mount. And of course we don't want to forget the nose cone. It had rolled off the work surface here while I was putting all the other stuff through. So we've got that. All the parts are complete. Definitely study this exploded diagram of the fin can. And even with seeing this, as you work through it, you'll see you need to kind of put things at least partially together to kind of figure out how they work here. In step 1, our first task is to assemble the motor mount. And so we'll need the 2 smaller rings here. Okay, and these simply fit, one on the inside, so this is the forward ring. It's got a little bit wider plastic here, and it has a little tab on one end of that. And then the aft ring is the smaller one, and that fits over the tube. Okay, so the aft ring is going to fit on over the tube. The forward one fits inside the tube here. And now we need the fin can, and these are marked A and B on their forward ends. So there's an A there, there's a B there, so we want the A one to begin with. And so this whole tube is going to fit in here. Alright, so again, this is the bigger ring is on the forward side, and that little tab there fits into a notch right here. So that fits into that little ring notch, and then the rear one has no notch, it just fits back here. Okay, into the innermost groove. And so we can set that down like that, and now we put in one of the fins. So the odd fin here that is not full of little tabs and has a hole in it, it does have a projection here within the fin tab, and that's going to go in this little slot here. So that should fit right like that. Alright, if you turn it over and try and do it, it's going to bulge here and the two halves of the fin can won't come together. So that has to be here. And then opposite that, there's one of the little decorative pipe fittings here. And that goes on the opposite side, and it doesn't matter which way it's pointing. It's the same in both directions. Okay. So now we're going to take the other section, marked B here, and the holes here will align with the little pegs. Okay, and so if you have your fin on in the correct direction, this should all fit snugly. Okay, a little bit of a crack there, that's about normal. Alright, if you got this fin in backwards, you're going to have a big gap back here on the aft end. Okay, and then our decorative pipe fitting there should be flush against. And now here's where we have these bigger rings. Okay, now the rear ring has a little projection right here, and that goes into this little slot at the base of the A section. And so this just pops over the entire recessed area there, and then goes into that little slot. The forward ring does not have any directionality to it, and it just goes over the front end of the tube. You'll have to kind of work it over those two tabs there. Okay, and now that's what's holding the entire fin can together. And then the last step is to put in the fins here. Now if you look closely, the fins have a letter designation on the forward edge of the root edge here. So one says A, one says B, and these will correspond to the slots that also say A and B here. So there's the A slot and the B slot. And this is where I was bringing up the warning that with younger fingers, these might be a little bit difficult. Okay, so my A to A here, you really got to push hard to get these into their slots, and you don't want to break it while you're pushing that. So younger Rocketeers may need a little assistance with this, maybe even some of the older ones. Alright, but those fit in there, and those fit in really nicely. Okay, and then our little plastic pieces here, the decorative pieces, those can go in by simply pushing them here. Or maybe not quite so simply. And again, younger Rocketeers may get a little frustrated with this. I know I do. Okay. Well, there's actually a little bit of directionality to these, so if you find that it's not going in easily one way, try the other. It's not marked, but the tab patterns are just slightly different. There we go. Okay, and then this. Not sure why that one didn't want to go, but we'll try it this way. There we go. Alright, now fortunately, that's probably the worst part of the whole kit, is just getting that whole fin can together. And then the retainer cap is a bayonet mount that simply pops in and screws over, and that'll hold the motor in when it's there. The next thing we'll do is attach the shock cord to the body tube here. And again, there are a couple of slots that we have to look for. All right, so on one end we have two slots that are exact opposites from each other. This is the aft end. This is where the fin can will attach. On the forward end we have a slot here and a smaller slot adjacent to it. The smaller slot is the one we want for the shock cord. And so the first thing I'm going to do is just feed this in. And if you have trouble getting the shock cord in, you can just cut a little bit of an angle to it, and that'll help you get it fed in there. Now I just need to pull this through. Okay, and now I am just going to tie a little knot here before I pull it all the way through. And I'm going to tie a double knot because I don't want it to come loose. You don't want to get the knot too big either, or it may come off of the mount, which is on the outside. This guy here, will come back to it. Alright, so now I'm just going to finish pulling this up, and I'm going to leave this little bit of rubber here until we get the rest of it put together. Now, even though the kit does not require any glue, one of the things I often recommend doing is just adding a little touch of wood glue or white glue into that, kind of work it down into the cracks and crevices of the knot, and that's just a little bit more safety to keep the knot from coming loose. Alright, now we take our little sleeve or hood, as they're calling it here. We're going to pass that shock cord through. Okay, and we want to orient this so the little bulge here is what is going to cover our knot, and then adjacent to that is a little clip, and that's going to go into the other slot here. Okay. And now I can pull up on my cord, and the knot disappears up into there. Okay, so if you want to, you can go ahead and glue that knot and then pull it up, and then you can go ahead and trim off the remaining rubber there. And I would even suggest adding a little bit more glue to help hold everything in place, but wait on that until you've got the rest of the rocket completely put together. That way, if you need to take something apart to reposition or something like that, you're not having to break a glue joint. Alright, up here at the other end, so we're showing it here, we have our nose cone, and you may have a little bit of flash in here. A lot of times you can just pop that out with your finger. If not, just use a hobby knife here. Just be careful not to cut the eyelet itself, and of course you don't want to cut your finger either. Okay, and so here we can tie this on. Now I'm going to wait here before doing that. Let's come over here for a moment. Alright, our next step is to take the fin can, and it's going to go in the other end, and it has the two spring tabs here. What we need to worry about is make sure that the launch lugs line up. So we have a launch lug here and a launch lug on this sleeve. So if you get this accidentally backwards, it's not too difficult to pop it back out. Alright, but we want it here. And now I'm just going to use one hand, and I'm going to squeeze those tabs in while I push with the other hand here, and that'll just get it past the lip. And then I can just twist a little bit and it locks into place there. Okay. The last thing here is to attach the parachute and the shock cord to the nose. Okay. Now, if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know that I don't like to do it the way they show it in the instructions. Okay, so they're showing simply gathering all the shroud lines together, passing those through the nose cone eyelet. Get all these things together here. Alright, and here you may want to even open the chute up, because these shroud lines are a little bit tangled. So here now you can figure out the individual ones there. Alright, so I'm just gathering them all up on my finger, and then I'll hold the chute in the middle and just adjust sides here until they're reasonably equal. Okay. And then we simply pass the loops of the shroud lines through this. Okay. And then you can either take the entire chute and pass it through. Oops, I just lost a shroud line there. Take the entire chute and pass it through the loops, or you can take the nose cone and pass it through the loops. Either way, it's going to tie them down onto the eyelet there, like is shown in the drawing. I prefer to put a snap swivel on here so that I can remove the chute easily, and at least in theory it helps prevent the chute from twisting and tying itself up as badly. Okay, so either way you want to do that is fine. Here I have a snap swivel, and I just got this in the fishing department of my local sporting goods store. And so I'm going to come back to this now and gather up all of those shroud lines once again. Okay, try to get them reasonably equal and straight. And now I'm going to gather those loops and squash them down so they're nice and narrow. And I'm going to pass them through the eyelet here, the swivel side of the snap swivel. Alright, the bright brass kind also work. This is a supposedly non-slipping one, but I use both types. Okay, and then we're just going to pull that down into a knot there, like that. And once you're sure that you have this in the position you want it, go ahead and add a little dab of white or wood glue and work into that knot so it doesn't come undone again. And now you can simply take the snap part, open it up, and it'll fit onto the nose cone like that, and then you just close it up again. And this allows you to change chutes easily. And again, having the swivel there, at least in theory, helps prevent the chute from getting all twisted up. In practice, yeah, well, it's marginal. Alright. And then the last thing I'll do here is go ahead and tie on the shock cord. And this is pretty much the same thing I did at the other end, except we're tying the knot around the eyelet instead of just tying a knot. But still go ahead and do a double knot or 2 half hitches here. Pull it in both directions. And here, trim this down to about 1/2 centimeter so that you have a little bit left there if the knot slips. And again, you can work just a little bit of white or wood glue into the knot for a little bit more safety there. Okay, so I'm just going to trim off here that little bit. Alright, and then I can attach the parachute. Alright, and all I have to do is put it all together and that rocket is ready to go. In total, it took me less than 30 minutes to assemble the rocket, even with pausing to show you guys what I did. Now, one thing before we completely end this video is the decals. Now, normally I don't cover finishing aspects of these rockets in my videos simply because it takes too long. But in the case of this one, I wanted to point out that this region here, the red, the Dragonite, and the whole dragon figure, that's one decal. And it's meant to go around the seam here between the fin can and the body tube. And so the red region here, when it's peeled off and stuck on, would be just above the fins and cover up all these seams. It would cover up the A and the B. It'll probably even cover up the mounting tabs here. So you do want to make sure everything's assembled the way you want it to before you put this on. But adding the decal will actually increase the strength of this joint here a little bit. Now, one other thing you might be asking yourself, can I glue this together? Yes. Okay, so if you want to glue this permanently together to have a bit more strength, I would recommend first doing the initial build, although you could leave out the decorative stuff here and perhaps even leave out the push-in fins, just so you get an idea of how that fin can goes together. And then you can go ahead and glue the seams and glue the pegs and the holes together, much like you would other types of plastic finned rockets, such as the Chiller or the Solaris or the Tigris. All those have glue-on fins, but otherwise have a very similar fin can. And so you can see my videos for that if you need some additional pointers with gluing on plastic fins and plastic fin cans. And with that, have a good flight, have a safe recovery, and come back next time.